Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. This is a compilation video of some of my greatest hits. Hope y'all enjoy them. One of the biggest complaints that I've heard about the advanced Dungeons & Dragons system was the group initiative system. I started playing D&D back in 1976. Well, I started with Chainmail, and then we got to the Red Box edition, and then went to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, which is first edition. I started running games in 79, and then I went into the Air Force, and I came out and I still run games. While I was in the Air Force, I played with a guy named Art Schmidt, and I'm going to talk about him here in a little bit. But according to the books, the Dungeons and AD&D books, each side this is for initiative. Each side rolls a d6, and everyone on each side goes on that same initiative. So you've got 3 or 4 players, and the monsters, bad guys, whatever over there. The one person, the party leader rolls over here, and the dungeon master rolls over there. And if the party goes first, whoever rolls higher gets to go first, and then they go like that. And that same initiative is kept through the entire combat. Most gamers found this primitive and too simplistic, and I completely agree. I couldn't figure out a better way to do it until I was in the Air Force. I played under one of the finest dungeon masters I have ever known. His name is Art Schmidt. This guy was the consummate gamer. He was smart. He was competent. He was fair. He had a great sense of humor. He played no favorites. Everybody was treated equally. I mean, this guy, if you want a dungeon master, find him. This is the guy to talk to. Okay? Art explained how he did initiatives. And it worked so well that I adopted the system, and I still use it today. I believe it is very similar to what 2nd edition uses. My time in the Air Force far predated 2nd edition, so we were using it before 2nd edition came out. Excuse me. Essentially, in Dungeons & Dragons, there are 10 segments in each round. There are 10 rounds in each turn, but we're just talking combat rounds here. Every player rolls a d10. The dungeon master rolls for the monsters or the adversaries, whoever they are. But for the players, each player rolls a d10 for his or her initiative and adds their individual dexterity's reaction adjustment. So every person rolls a d10. If your dexterity reaction adjustment is a 3 plus 3, you get to roll a d10 and add 3. If it's a plus 1. You get to roll a d10 and add 1. It's different for every player, right? This is done each round of combat. So every player has a different initiative each round, and it's generally from 1 to 13, depending on your bonuses. And there's other things that can give you bonuses on initiative. Generally, if a party is surprised, they must endure 1 round of combat, where the bad guys get to shoot at them or whatever, before initiatives are rolled. But the same works against them as well. If the players ambush somebody else, if surprise somebody, they get a round of fire before the bad guys get to roll their initiative too. So it works both ways. Now this is the important part of this. The concept of the spellcaster is one of the most important parts of this. A spellcaster wishing to cast a spell will begin casting on his initiative. Each spell has a casting time in segments in the book, segments, turns, rounds, whatever. And the spell will go off on that segment after the casting time. So in other words, if a wizard begins casting Fireball on initiative 9, the spell goes off on 6s, because Fireball has a casting time of 3 segments. So he starts casting on 9, 8, 7, 6. It goes off on 6s. Okay? Hopefully some stray arrow or other calamity won't befall this poor caster during his 3-segment casting time. If a wizard is hit while casting and fails a savings throw, and this works for clerics and everybody as well, every caster. If a wizard is hit while casting and fails a savings throw versus petrification, the spell fails and is lost for the day. So if he's casting the big bad world-ending spell that's going to clean your clock and end your character, and you smack him with your sword, he's got to make that savings throw, and if he fails, spell goes away. You don't have to deal with it no more. That's the problems of being a spellcaster. Spellcasters can be very, very powerful, and this helps to limit them somewhat. Player characters tied on the same initiative, and this works for the monsters too. Anybody who's tied on the same initiative rolls a d6 for the order that they go. The higher the better. And if they tie on that, they roll again. They keep rolling until they, The Dungeon Master has to roll initiatives similarly for his monsters or the antagonists, whatever they are. The rule of thumb I use is that if a monster, and I'm going to do a video on this here shortly, if a monster is intelligent and has an organized military-style deployment, they get to all go on the same initiative. Why? Because they've trained together, they're disciplined, they know what each other's going to do, they can coordinate better. They have discipline and training. Otherwise, each monster acts on their own individual initiative, just like the player characters do. So you can have players going before monsters and then other players going after it and blah, 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 blah. It's all intermingled. But every round, everybody gets a different initiative. Say, it keeps the game a little more interesting. And it does not take long before players who try this system will easily master it, and it won't be confusing at all. There's two ways you can do the casting of spells, by the way. When, like, for example, this wizard that we were talking about earlier, he starts casting on 9, his spell goes off on 6. Well, if there's players going on 6, I've heard 2 different ways to do this. That wizard has to roll a d6 with those players. I've also heard that a different way to do it where the spells that are finished casting on that segment go off first. So either way of that is good. It's up to you however you want to do it. My contention is this method for rolling initiatives works really well. I highly recommend it. It works really, really well. It's fun. It's fast moving. When I'm doing combat as a game master, okay, initiatives, everybody. Okay, got them? Okay. All right, anybody better than a 12? 12s, 11s, 10s. Okay, you're on 10s. Do what you're going to do. 9s, 8s, 7s. On 7s. Here we go. Boom, 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 boom. 6s. On 6s. My bad guy gets to go. He's going to go boom, boom. Okay, he's going to attack you. Boom, and I roll. Now, you see, it works pretty easily. It works pretty smoothly. Oh, you two are tied on 9s, d6s. Or the infamous, who's on 5s? Okay, you're tied with all the monsters, d6s. It gets to be roll-offs and it's pretty good. It's fun. My contention is this system is much better than the one they use in the book. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is a wonderful game because in it you can tweak it however you want. There are no 2 people who play it the same way. This method of initiatives will make your game move a lot smoother and will be more interesting for your players. Alright, if you are running a fighter, and using that same, I'm just going to pick up where that video left off. If you are running a fighter type character with multiple attacks, your attacks must be spaced out during the round. So you roll a d10 and add your dexterity's reaction adjustment, and where you start there, and the rest of that's your first attack, and then the rest of your attacks are spaced out evenly as you can throughout the rest of the round. So for example, a fighter with 2 attacks rolling an initiative 9 would get his first attack on 9, and his second attack would be on 4.5, or round up to 5. Some people round up, some people round down. I prefer to round up, and I do that for all my players. I also do it for the bad guys, so it's fair for everybody. A character with 3 attacks rolling an initiative of 8 would go on 8, 5, and 2. If the character with 3 attacks rolled an initiative of 9, they would go on 9, 6, and 3. You see, you space it out. If the character with 3 attacks rolled an initiative of 2, they would go on 2, 1, and 0. If a character with 3 attacks rolled an initiative of 1, he would go on 1, 0, and -1. Okay? And the reason being, if you roll an initiative of 10 and you roll a d10 and you get a 10, but you have a dexterity's reaction adjustment of 2, that means you actually go on 12s. When I start initiatives, I start at 15 just to be on the safe side. And if I really want to scare my players, I start at 19. 19, 18, 17, because then they go, wait, does one of his bad guys go on 19? You see what I'm saying? It kind of gets people thinking about different things, throws them off their game. My contention is, if characters can go above 10 like that with their initiative adjustments, then they can go below 10 with casting times and things like that. So you can go into the negative initiatives and just, when you're doing 10 down to 2, 1, 0, -1, -2, -3, and on down. And that keeps the order of everything straight. It's still the same round. The negative initiatives don't go into the next round. The initiatives above 10 don't go into the previous round. It's all that one round. But it allows everything to be in a progressive order. Not, you know what I'm saying. It allows you to keep everything straight. Now I'm going to do an example of how combat goes using this system. So, here we go. Fighter A with 2 attacks, Fighter B with 3 attacks, a wizard, a thief, and a cleric are ambushed by monsters. There's a group of orcs all working together, and they're being led by a high-level cleric. As the dungeon master, I would roll initiatives for the clerics as one unit, and for the evil cleric as a separate one. So 2 different initiatives, one for the clerics, one for the orcs, and one for the cleric. Okay, now, the first round, since the PCs are ambushed, the orcs get a free round of attacks, hitting and damaging each character for a few points of damage. The cleric could also cast a spell, depending on how they want to do it. Now, a lot of times I'll hold the big bad guy in reserve and not let him, because if he's hiding, they don't know he's there. It could be a nasty surprise later. However you want to do it is up to you. All right, now, on the second round, Fighter A rolls an initiative of 8. Because he has 2 attacks, he goes on 8s and 4s. Fighter B rolls an initiative of 6. Because that character has 3 attacks, they go on 6, 4, and 2. The wizards and thieves and clerics all have 1 attack, so the wizard goes on a 7, the thief rolled a 7, and the cleric rolled a 9. So here we go. The orcs rolled a group initiative of 5. The evil cleric rolled an initiative of 4. On 9s, I start at 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, down to 9s. The player cleric, the PC cleric, begins casting Silence 15-foot radius, which is a very effective spell against other enemy spellcasters. This spell has a casting time of 5 segments, so he starts on 9s, and it's going to go off on 4s. So he's doing his casting. Now, on 8s, the Fighter A kills 1 orc with his battle axe, which he carries. He didn't have to draw it out. He's always carrying it, so, over his shoulder or whatever. He automatically has it. He can swing. On 7s, the wizard and thief roll d6s, and the thief wins. Whoever gets higher goes first. He rolls to hide in shadows and moves silently to get behind the evil cleric. So if he knew the evil cleric was there, he can go do that. If not, he would have to partake in combat somehow. But I'm playing this as though the cleric did something on the first round of that ambush. So, all right. He moves silently, hides in shadows. He's trying to get around behind the evil cleric. Why? Because thieves get a multiple damage on a backstab. If this thief can do damage on a backstab by surprise with his melee weapon, he can do multiple damage. So if he say he hits with a sword, a d6 sword, and he rolls a 5 and he gets a +1 adjustment, that's 6 points, right? And he gets you get to multiply that by whatever the multiplier. Say he's got a multiplier of 2. He does 12 points instead of 6. Attacking from surprise by behind a backstab is the thief's bread and butter, and he's trying to use that, which is smart. The wizard begins casting Hold Person on the evil cleric. It has a casting time of 3 segments, and it will go off on 4s. So he's casting. On 6s, Fighter B, who now finally gets to go, draws a sword. On 5s, the orcs get to attack, and they score hits on all the player characters, doing various damage. Since the wizard and cleric were both in the middle of casting, they each now have to make a savings throw versus paralyzation or lose their spells. The wizard fails his save, and his hold person spell is lost. The cleric makes his save, so he's still casting. Now, if they had been wounded prior with crits or something massive, I'm not talking cuts and stabs, I'm talking like a spear in the chest or whatever, they would have had to make minuses on their savings throw versus petrification. But since all it was little hacks here and there, it's not that big a deal. On 4s, the evil cleric, the PC cleric, and both PC fighters roll d6s. The evil cleric rolls a 2, the fighter A rolls a 4, fighter B rolls a 6, and the PC cleric rolls a 6. Fighter B and the PC cleric are tied again, and they roll off again, with the cleric winning. The cleric's silent spell is cast on the evil wizard's left shoe. If you cast it on the cleric, he gets a savings throw. You cast it on his left shoe. A little bit of a D&D hack there. Or on his cape or something. Fighter B kills an orc. Fighter A kills another orc. The evil cleric finds himself in a bad position. The silent spell virtually eliminates all of his prepared spells. The spells he prayed for that morning all have verbal components, and if he can't speak, if there's no sound, he cannot cast these spells. Because they all have verbal components, he can't cast them. He opts to retreat, leaving the orcs to fight on without him. The reason being, his reasoning at this point is that spell will eventually wear off and he might be able to come back and help. Or he just didn't give a crap about the orcs and runs away. Because bad guys are bad. That's the definition of bad. At any rate, on 2s, fighter B hacks another orc to death. Okay? Now, 3rd round. The group uses their various spells and weapons, and on whatever initiative they roll, to fight the orcs, who really have no chance but prevent the group from giving chase to the evil orcs. Or the evil cleric, rather. But the thief, who was sneaking around in the shadows, opts to follow the evil cleric. So he won't get away. He can, and because they don't want this guy to get away, obviously. He either has information or something that they'll need. He can leave signs and clues pointing which way the scoundrel has fled so the group can deal with him later. It's all about the planning, and it's all about making sure, giving your player, the player wants to give the other players a better chance. It's about teamwork. Okay? As you can see, this initiative system works well. It's free-flowing, it's fast-paced, it adds an element of excitement to the game. Nobody has the same initiative every round. I hope this helps new DMs out there. And again, I'm not telling you this is how you have to do it. I'm giving you suggestions. This is what I do. I've been doing it a long time. I started running D&D back in 1979. I discovered this system in the mid-'80s when I was in the Air Force. It works well, and I still use it today. And it's fast-paced. It keeps everything exciting. Everything moves along pretty quick. All you have to do is pay attention. I've played in hundreds of advanced Dungeons and Dragons games over the last 40 years. Over 40 years. Maybe thousands of them. Many dungeon masters run monsters as your basic engines of destruction. Cookie cutter antagonists with no rhyme or reason for their aggression, or they're, your basic cardboard cutout bandits, And this may suffice for beginning player characters and beginning players. But soon, your players are going to want more. As a dungeon master, I try to give my bad guys a bit more backstory. Who is he and why is he there? Why is he attacking the party? What is his motivation and what are his ultimate goals? The bad guys have to fit into the world and they have to have a plan for achieving whatever goals that they have. So, by giving your characters a little more backstory, you give them some personality. If the goal the bad guy has is to get item A, and the player characters are in the process of getting item A, he may run into them you know, as a corollary thing, you know, as a happenstance. But if he sees them, he may wait, let them get the item, and then take it from them on the trail. You see what I'm saying? If he's an intelligent person, he'll let them do all the hard work and then just take it from them. After they're beaten and bloody and everything, and they defeated all the bad guys, then they get the item, and they turn around, they're coming back, then hit them. You see what I'm saying? Smart bad guys will do that. Why? Because they're bad guys. It's what they do. When I start a campaign, I create a number of protagonists, usually 3 to 6. And they're henchmen and the servitors, the people that work for them. Henchmen, lackeys, whatever. Minions. What's a good word? And these bad guys have goals and a plan to achieve these goals. The plan is already in action. So it is up to the player characters to discover the plan, or at least a part of it, and try to stop it. One of the biggest complaints of any dungeon master, and I hear this constantly, and justifiably so, this is a valid complaint, is when they design a huge, intricate, elaborate adventure with a huge dungeon with maybe a tower, or a castle, whatever, and it's it's off of the west of the town where the players are, and it's a wonderful campaign. They got it all set up and everything, and then for whatever reason, the party insists on going east. It happens every single time. Or, for whatever reason, the party decides not to intervene in the bad guy's plan. Well, my character wouldn't do that. That's not that would be against my character's alignment. My character has other things to do, that kind of thing. And that's perfectly within their their rights to say that. If they're running their character a certain way, you can't argue with it, because they're playing their characters. It's a role-playing game. They're playing a role. If the character wouldn't do it, they shouldn't do it. Using my campaign design pattern, the bad guy's plan progresses regardless of what the player characters do. All you can do is keep giving them hints as to what's going on. They run into this. They see that. This bad guy. They run into this bad guy at a shop. They see a trail of captives chained together heading for the slavery auction block or whatever. Something. You give them hints as to what they're doing. Now, if they stop him, cool. We get to run the adventure. If they ignore him, cool. We get to run little side adventures as the bad guy's plan progresses. And sometime in the future, when the player characters are higher level, they can try to stop him. However, keep in mind, as the plan progresses, it will be harder to foil. The bad guys and their henchmen will all be higher level as well. They'll be more powerful and will have better items. And if they wait too long, the plan will come to fruition, and that's something nobody wants. Whatever the plan is, they get this item that allows them to run the world. They overthrow the good king and set themselves up as the emperor, whatever the case may be. Regardless whether or not a specific encounter is related to the bad guy's plan, monsters are intricate personalities who require some planning and thought. Bandits, human or otherwise, are just looking for a quick score. But why? Did their farms fail? Are their families hungry? Are they in the service of a more powerful being, like essentially mercenaries for hire? What are their ultimate goals? If all it is they just need the money, then that's fine. That may very, very well be a valid reason for them to become bandits on the highway, highwaymen. But if there's something more involved, that's a way to get your players into the adventure. You see what I'm saying? Dragons, or other large solitary monsters, are greedy, avaricious beasts. Why have they ventured from their lair? Because they're notoriously, they sleep a lot. On their mound of treasure, if you've seen Lord of the Rings, you know what I'm talking about. The Hobbit, Why does this particular party interest them? Are they being controlled? Are they in the service of another more powerful being? Or maybe a wizard has them, has an orb of the dragon kind or whatever. A wizard can summon monsters and they have to obey him. There are spells for that. Demons, things like that. The idea there is, if a monster, a bad guy monster, if a bad guy's controlling a monster, the monster probably doesn't like it. So if for whatever reason, instead of killing the monster, they eliminate that control somehow, chances are that monster is going to be a little pissed and go after the guy who is controlling him. You see what I'm saying? The monster is not technically on the player character side, but it's that old adage, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You know? One of the best campaigns I ever ran, I had a guy who rode a black dragon, and he was one of the main protagonists, and he worked for the main bad guy. He was a henchman, is not strong enough a word. He was a servant, but he wasn't a minion. He was too powerful to be a minion. But this guy worked with the bad guy, and the bad guy was giving him his orders. And so the players couldn't beat him. So what they did is they found a way to change his alignment from bad to good. He lost his dragon and most of his stuff, but he was still a pretty powerful dude, and he was not happy about having, my contention is there's more than one way to skin a cat. Henchmen, servitors of the bad guy, are usually trying to enact some part of the plan. But why? Why here? Are the PCs worth the diversion from the plan? Have the PCs been noticed by the bad guy? If so, have these servants been sent to kill them? Or to follow them? Or to watch them? You know what I'm saying? It's like before, let the PCs do whatever they're doing, and then get the item that you want, and then get the item from them. You see what I'm saying? The whole concept of the bad guy is he's bad, and if they're intelligent bad guys, you gotta play them as intelligent. They're a mindless beast. For example, a good example. I was running players, and they were attacked by a pack of wolves, and these wolves weren't interested in their items. They wanted fresh meat. So when the players were all wiped out by the wolves, they were like, well, except for 2 players who made it up a tree and hid. The wolves down there were like, okay, well, when the wolves leave, we'll just go down and resurrect everybody. No, you're not going to be able to do that because the wolves are eating. That's the whole point they're being there, A lot of people had to make up new characters. My contention is you got to play the monsters as the monsters. Okay, the wolves weren't interested in their stuff. The guys are hiding up in a tree. They had a lot of nice stuff when they were done, but they had other people had to make up new characters. You see what I'm saying? When the monsters are being run against the player characters, I usually categorize the monsters into one of the following: rabble, a disciplined force, or singular monsters. Now, rabble is basically a mass of bodies. They're uncoordinated, undisciplined, a group of people that run over and attack. The mob, as it were. In that, I usually try to do groups of initiatives that do different things and like that. Watch my video on initiatives, and you'll see what I'm talking about, how to roll initiatives. But my contention is, if you have groups of people that are doing different things, they're not really working together, but they're all against the player characters. It's undisciplined rabble. Then you have the disciplined force, which is a force with training and an objective which the leaders are trying to achieve. These guys, you roll one initiative and they all act on the same one because they have discipline and training. They have a goal. They're being organized, and somebody's giving them orders to follow. They're like a military unit. Okay, they're much better coordinated. Then you have your singular monsters, dragons, hydras, or some other large critter which is threatening the PC. Each one gets its own initiative. So, that way it's a little more fair and a little more realistic. That's what I do. And again, all these are just suggestions. You can run it however you want. My contention is this is what I do. Intelligent creatures will act with purpose and precision. Otherwise, they will just randomly attack the nearest person, basically. For example, a dragon will be rational and try to use tactics. Disciplined groups will act accordingly as well. A pack of wolves is looking for fresh meat, like I said, and will just attack the nearest player character. How you play monsters in your game will directly impact the enjoyment that your players experience. If you have wolves that are using tactics with an L-shaped ambush, and there's something wrong with that. Those wolves are not normal wolves. By the same token, if you have a an evil paladin who is just running around killing people, that's out of character as well. You see what I'm saying? Every monster has a personality, and depending on if it's a group of peasants, a trained military force, a dragon, whatever, they all have their own motivations. They all have different intelligence levels. You have to play them accordingly. All right, your players will thank you. At some point, this is about homebrewed spells. At some point, your players will want a larger variety of spells to choose from. For reference, check out the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, pages 115 through 116. The section is titled Spell Research. Okay? This is a caution to the newer dungeon masters out there. Your players will work their asses off to use this procedure to create new spells far, far more powerful than they should have at their current level. If you can only cast a 2nd level spell, you cannot create a 15 or an 8th level spell. If you're a 3rd level caster, you cannot create a 5th level spell. It's just, you can't do it. You have to, a wizard has to be able to cast the spell that they create. People are going to want to do this. The nicest, most level-headed, friendliest person in the world will invariably try to create or research a new 2nd level spell that restructures reality on a cosmic scale and humbles entire pantheons of deities whenever it's cast. It's not the player's fault. It's the nature of the beast. Okay? Just say no and move on. It is your job as the dungeon master to curtail this practice. A good rule of thumb is to compare the spell that they've created, the one that they want to create, to other spells. And you want to compare it to the spells in their class of that level. Because in different character classes, sometimes the spells are in different levels. For example, the clerics and magic users both have the spell Remove Curse, but they're of different ones. I think one's 3rd level and one's 4th level. So, there's a variance there. You have to compare the spell for the class that they're in. If it's a magic user, compare it to magic user spells. If it's a cleric, compare it to clerical spells. My contention is, and usually clerics don't get to research a whole lot of spells, but there you go. I'm sure there's a procedure for it. My contention is, I'm talking mainly about wizards, magic users, illusions, secondly. Compare that to the spells in that class of the level that they want to create. Compare it to that level, the level below, and the level above. Look at the progression. Does it fit that level? Is the power level equitable? Okay. This will give you a sense of not only the power of the spells in that level, but the power progression above and below. This is a good frame of reference. I think it actually says to do that in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Here are some examples of spells that I would allow and have allowed in my game. I had a player create the spell Power Bolt. He wanted a more offensive punch as a 1st level wizard, and that's fine. I got no problem with that. It's a 1st level spell. Range is 8 double mark. It's 80 feet indoors, 80 yards outdoors. It is verbal and somatic components only. Casting time is 1 segment. Duration is special, like the magic missile. And so that means you can precast it. The savings throw is none. They don't get a save for this. The area of effect is 1 target per bolt. So, use of this spell allows the magic user to fire 1 or more bolts of energy from his hands. Each bolt does 1d6 damage. The magic user is allowed to shoot 1 bolt per level. Each bolt can have a different target if desired, but only 1 bolt can be fired per round from each hand. So, you can fire boom, boom per round. It gives magic users a little more offensive punch. Now, These bolts can damage inanimate objects, so they can use it against doors and all. And also, magic user, if you miss, what's behind it? You know, be aware of what's behind the target as well. Because if you miss, that bolt's going somewhere. Just saying. The magic user must roll. Oh, and the magic user must be conscious of misses. The magic user must roll to hit the armor class just as if he was using a dart or a thrown dagger. So it's not an automatic hit like the magic missile. Dexterity adjustments do apply, so they get to aim this, you know, kind of thing. Now, the differences between this and the magic missiles. Magic missiles do not miss. They don't do as much damage. They only do up to 5 points, but they do a minimum of 2 points. So the damage is comparable. Magic missiles don't miss, but they get fewer. The magic user gets fewer of them because you go up, I think, once every third level or whatever it is. You get a new magic missile. This one allows one per level, but they only do a D6, so it's like kind of thing. It's not didn't do a lot of damage, but it gives them a little more offensive punch at first level. So to me, that's a reasonable first level spell for a player to create. The next one, this is a third level spell. This one was created by a friend of mine in a game, and I can't remember who it was, but people shared it in the group, and it got used quite often. Eldritch Shield. This is a third level spell. The range is self or one other creature. The area of effect is special. Essentially one creature. Components verbal and somatic. The duration is until destroyed or dispelled. Casting time is 2 segments. There is no saving throw for this. So this spell creates a force field around a person. It creates a little personal force field is all it does. Surrounding the magic user's body, which completely protects the caster from all physical and magical attacks of a physical nature. The field will interrupt missiles from slings and bows, crossbows, that kind of thing. The energy attacks of fireballs, lightning bolts, magic missiles, etc., but will be ineffective against attacks like gases, fogs, vapors, mind-affecting psionics, mind-affecting magic, that kind of thing. The amount of damage the field can absorb before being destroyed is equal to the hit points of the caster. So if your magic user has 12 hit points, it's a 12-point shield. It's not a lot, but it's something, you know. If a magic user casts it on himself before he goes into battle, he essentially doubles his hit points, which is not bad. If the benefactor of the spell is not the caster, then the benefactor must be touched by the caster as part of the somatic component. So this guy could create multiple shields around different people. So, you know. These 2 spells are basic combat spells and are not overpowered. Again, this Eldritch Shield is a 3rd level spell. That's equivalent to a fireball. A fireball does a d6 per level, and you get it as a magic user. You get it at 5th level. So your minimum fireball does 5d6. It can do up to 30 points of damage. To me, this is a reasonable spell. It's defensive. It doesn't hurt anyone, and it allows your wizards and other characters to be a little more survivable. That's all it does. To me, that's a reasonable spell for 3rd level. Now let's talk about my friend Corey, who created. I don't remember what it was. He liked to create spells for the game. His 4th level wizard, who was able to cast 2nd level spells. His wizard wanted to implode stars. His wizard wanted to destroy cities with nuclear type weaponry. That's what he was creating for spells. No, that's not happening. That not only does it grossly unbalance the game, it's not logical, and he just wasn't that powerful. A 9th level wizard creating a nuclear fireball, maybe, you know, with a hell of a cost to it, maybe. But at 4th level, no. Keep puttering around in the library, dude. You got some studying to do. That's all I'm saying. Your players eventually will come across magic items. Sword or weapon, or some other weapon, wand, armor, shield, staff, whatever. I talk about some of them in my videos. Go check those out. If they kill an enemy who's using that item, weapon, whatever, against them, chances are that it's not cursed, and that's a good thing. It may have some sort of a alignment restriction or some other restrictive condition, but it's probably not outright cursed. If the group saw the bad guy using it, then they probably have a good idea of what it does. You know, a guy's got a wand, it's shooting fireballs. It may be a wand of fireball, I'm just saying. However, if it's found on a dead enemy and he did not use it against them, or they hadn't seen him use it, or if it's found in some treasure hoard, then the group will want to know what it is and what it does. The dungeon master should actively work to keep that secret. Finding an item that looks really nice when it should be rusty, yeah, that's a good indication it's probably magical, but what does it do? See, that's the thing. There are two ways I can think of to figure it out. One, try and use the item, which is exceedingly dangerous, especially if it's cursed. The other one is to identify the item. Identify if the group has no access. I can't read my writing. If the group has access to If the group has access to an identify spell. I wrote real small and my writing sucks anyway. If the group does not have access to an identify spell, they must find an NPC non-player character magic user to do this. That's expensive. Identify is a first level magic user spell. It's on page 66 and 67 of the player's handbook, and a magic user or wizard can use this spell to identify what a magic item is and what it does, as well as any command words involved. That's basically what it does. Now, keep in mind, in order to identify an item, it must be held, worn, or handled by the magic user, as would be normal for the object. Helmets must be worn, belts must be worn, wands must be held, weapons must be held, etc. Should an item be cursed, said magic user will potentially be affected by that curse. Why? He's holding it, he's wearing it, whatever. Most NPC magic users will want to have a remove curse spell cast on the item prior to identifying it. And they may have some other restrictions as well. I just use this as an example. Remove Cursed is a 4th level magic user spell or a 3rd level clerical spell. Non-player character spellcasters will want to be paid. Magic users and illusionists will want cash because spell research is expensive. Or they might take something in trade. You know, you got 8 magic items, I'll take one of these, my choice of the magic items, and I'll identify all of them for you, that kind of thing. Druids will want some ecological favor or some sort of a good deed. Clerics will want a donation to their temple. In any way you want to look at it, they're getting paid. Okay? Now, when an NPC magic user identifies something for them, here we go. My base rate is 1,000 gold pieces per spell per level, plus spell components if the dungeon master is using them in the game. The above stated non-player character magic user will want 4,000 gold pieces for the remove curse, and 1,000 gold pieces for the identify spell, plus the spell components for the identify spell, because I don't think there is any for the remove curse. Also note the percentage chances for success listed in the spell description. Read that spell description very, very thoroughly, along with the debilitating nature of the spell itself. I have found in rare instances, if the group has a nice safe place to stay, a magic user can do two identifies a day. If they're on the move and the guy's identifying during the course of the thing, yeah, somebody's carrying him or he's riding in the wagon afterwards because he has to rest for a long time afterwards. Minimum of 8 hours recovery time, minimum. So do it when you go to at night. Here's what you do: if you're moving and you have to identify something, do it at night before you go to sleep. That way you have that 8 hours to sleep and you're ready to go the next day. that's a logical thing to do, in my opinion. Now that being said, sometimes you can't always do that. This debilitating time can be up to 24 hours. So that's another thing to consider. I have seen dungeon masters allow player characters to cast 12 or 15, or not 12 or 15, 5 or 6 identifies in a single day because the group needed to know what the magic items do. I'm not disparaging them, but I would never allow that, because that magic users are very powerful. Spells come with restrictions for a reason. You can't simply bypass the restrictions. That's all I'm saying. In Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, there are a number of spells and magic items that allow player characters to travel very, very quickly. One of the most infamous is teleportation. It's used all the time, and I've talked about this in a number of other videos. Scrying devices, magic items, and a few others. People who gain an item of teleport are very happy because it allows them to bypass many threats, bandits, ambushes, monsters, etc., while traveling from point A to point B. I've talked about this, like I said, in other videos, and just go check them out. You'll see what I'm talking about. What players usually forget is, and in my experience, they tend to forget a lot, is the inherent dangers of teleportation. There are at least 2 different types of teleports. The first one, the basic teleport, is a 5th level magic user spell, page 82 of the player's handbook. Excuse me. There's a more advanced spell called Teleport Without Error. It is a 7th level magic user spell on page 62 of the Unearthed Arcana. The basic spell, from the 5th level spell, lists conditions and limits on weight and such like that, and you need to read that and be aware of it, because there is a weight limit. It also lists a chart which must be used to determine how successful any teleport is. There are 3 categories on this chart. High, meaning you teleported too high and you fall to the ground, or wherever you were teleporting you fall. Low, meaning you teleport low and end up in the ground. And on target. On target is where you're right where you want to be, which is the best one. Any low result, where the magic user is teleporting onto a solid surface, results in the immediate death of the magic user. And if you happen to be teleporting with him, guess what? You get dead too. You be a dead person too. Now, keep in mind, a high result could also be bad. Not just for the falling damage, but say you're teleporting into a cavern, because that happens a lot, especially in Dungeons and Dragons. You're spelunking, you're going boo boo boo, and, oh, I left my stuff way back over there, or we have to go back and get this. I'll teleport back and get it. So you teleport back. Well, you were only there for a few minutes. You teleport high, you're still inside the rock. You still die. The high result usually ends up in falling damage, unless you're teleporting into a cavern or a room or something like that. Because, a roof will kill you just as well as solid rock will. I'm just saying. A high result, it depends on how well you roll, how close to the on-target thing you get. So if on-target starts at, say, 10 or whatever, I don't know, I don't have the chart in front of me, but say it's 10, and you roll a 7, guess what? You 3, that's 3 percentage points off. That's how they do it. And you can fall from 10 to 320 yards outside or feet inside. That's how it's done. And falling damage, you need to look up some falling damage, because that can do some serious damage. Players tend to ignore this, and in all fairness, many dungeon masters do as well. I roll each and every time anyone teleports in my game. Scrying essentially allows player characters or non-player characters to see the target area in real time. So they always use the most favorable teleport conditions. That's why a scrying device and a teleport device are so damned useful together. I'm going to scry on this room. Boom, you see it. Okay, this is the room. That's what in real time I'm looking at it. Now I'm going to teleport there. It's much more effective. Um, I talked about this in another video, but I'm gonna rehash the story a quick, abbreviated. I'll get it right in a minute. Version. There's a guy named Dave used to, or I think it was Dave. Anyway, he used to run a mage in my game, and he had this. He was a greedy bastard. He wasn't that bright, but he was greedy. He was smart in certain things. He was good with strategy games, Axis and Allies, Risk, that kind of thing. Chess, he was good with chess. You put him in a tactical situation, and he was lost. He had no idea. Anyway, he had this thing where he found out where the king's treasury was. So he started teleporting in, grabbing stuff, and teleporting out. And he did this over multiple days. He was making good money, and he kept doing it. Boom, 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 boom. The problem was, eventually somebody figured out, hey, we're missing some money here. Somebody's stealing something. So they posted more guards. They took other precautions. Blah, 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 but it kept happening night after night after night. So finally, the king and the treasurer got together, and he said, look, it's obvious there's magical stuff going on here. So what we got to do, let's pull all the treasure out, and we're going to fill in the treasure room, the vaults. What we'll do is we'll put bricks up and put flat boards and stuff across, and we'll crisscross the area so that when he teleports in, we'll get him. And sure enough, the next night, he got used to just doing it. And so he did it, and he died. He went to the well. I think the video is he went to the well one too many times or something like that. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is, you got to be careful where you teleport to. It's very, very important because that chart will kill you easily. And if you teleport bad, if you fail it and somebody's going with you, they can get hurt too. They can die easily. And if you have 1,000 hit points and you teleport inside solid rock, you're still dead. If you have 1 hit point or 1,000,000, you're still dead. Okay. The more advanced teleport without error spell is much safer when used on the caster's home planet. The weight limitations are the same, but there is no chance for error. The teleport success chart is ignored as long as the target is on the home planet. So if you know pretty well where you're going, boom, you're there. Boom. You don't got to roll. Now, the spell can be used. Here's the kicker. The spell can be used to teleport to different planes of existence, but this assumes that the caster has been there and has carefully studied an area to teleport to. So, if you and the teleport success chart is used in these extra planar jaunts. So if your character has never been to the 3rd plane of hell and you decide to teleport there, yeah, you got to roll on that chart, and there's a good chance you'll get killed. Not just by the denizens, you'll end up in rock or some other mishap. You'll fall because it's its own dimension. And even if you survive that, teleporting to the 3rd plane of hell blindly is just damn stupid. Ask any player. Anyway, here's the kicker. Read through these spells very, very thoroughly to make sure you understand both their uses and their pitfalls. Your players will try to take advantage. And all it takes is one player teleporting into a rock somewhere, or a wall, or the roof, or the floor, whatever, and they'll think twice after that. Magic resistance. I was online the other day, and I read a post in an Advanced Dungeons and Dragons group. It was something to the effect of how a 5e player didn't understand how first edition players could diss 5e because of all of the abilities player characters get. His reasoning was that first edition wizards could cast fireballs at 15th level that did 15d6 damage. He said those fireballs were overpowered, OP, and that his 5e wizards had no spell equivalent to that. My response was that A, bad guys have access to the exact same spells, including fireballs, and B, many monsters have magic resistance. This kid had no clue what magic resistance was. He thought it was advantage on saving throws or some such nonsense. I told him to look it up. For the benefit of my subscribers and other folks who are interested, here's how first edition magic resistance works. It's listed as a percentage, and if the monster or being rolls that percentage or lower, whatever magic spell was cast against them is ineffective. It's like a catch-all force field against magic. Such beings can avoid damage from fireballs and other magic spells in this manner. It is a very, very powerful defense. So wizards get powerful spells, but the monsters have powerful defenses. On page 6 of the Deities and Demigods, or Legends and Lore, if you have that, it's the same book, basically, different title. It details, and on page 6, it details how the magic resistance system works. Essentially, the percentage, given on the monster or being description, most gods have magic resistance as well, is calculated. This percentage is calculated for an 11th level caster. If the caster attacking the being with a spell like Fireball, Lightning Bolt, Magic Missile, Cone of Cold, whatever, if it's higher than 11th level, if the guy casting the spell is higher than 11th level, then the magic resistance rating is decreased 5% per level. The caster is over 11th level. So a 12th level caster, you subtract 5%. A 13th level, you subtract 10%. 14th, you subtract 15. 15th, you subtract 20. 20th level, you subtract 45. You see what I'm saying? It's not a perfect defense. It's pretty damn good, but not perfect. Now, if the caster is lower than 11th level, the resistance percentage is increased 5% per level under 11th. So a 10th level caster, the magic resistance is upped by 5. A 9th level, it's up by 10. 8th level is up by 15. 7th level is up by 20. 3rd level is up by 40. You see what I'm saying? It's variable depending on who's casting spells against it. It's a force field that decreases in power the higher level the character is. A magic resistance rating of 90% means that a 12th level attacker using magic spells has an 85% chance of spell failure, while a 9th level caster has no chance to affect the being whatsoever. So, it's powerful, but it's not super powerful. Most gods, devils, demons, and many other powerful beings have this magic resistance ability, and so affecting them with magic is a tricky proposition. I did a spell. Yeah. No, I did a video on Call Lightning as a druid. I don't remember what it was called, but if you'll read the spell Call Lightning, the lightning cast by the druid is not magical lightning. It is a normal lightning bolt that is directed by the druid. So he calls a lightning bolt down from the sky, but it's a normal lightning bolt. That's as per the spell. So that Call Lightning bypasses magic resistance. And there's other such loopholes like that. But the point being, this magic resistance is not all encompassing, but it is very, very powerful. You have to be, attacking somebody with magic resistance as a wizard is very, very tricky. That's why fighters are so important. As per the book, magic resistance can defeat most spells. I'm just saying. So yeah, I hope that makes everything a little more clear, and I hope people learn to appreciate first edition for all of its intricacies. I'm starting to like 5th edition because I'm playing with a group here in town, and they're good people, good dungeon masters. I'm starting to really enjoy 5th edition. The only problem that I have with it is it's hard to kill off your character in 5th edition. I mean, I suppose the dungeon master can, but with a variety of different characters, they have to make the bad guys a challenge for everybody without overpowering them. So if you make your character as survivable as possible, then it makes it hard for the dungeon master to kill it off without obliterating the rest of the group. Now, there's something else I want to bring up. I didn't do the research. I didn't put it in my research for the video, but I need to bring this up. Many people think that if you go to 5th edition from, like for example, I play primarily 1st edition. When I went into 5th edition, my characters, I make them as survivable as possible. There's a reason for that. Playing 1st edition, your character can die accidentally. Okay? So you try to give your character every advantage, and that's how you learn to play. It's ingrained in your system. Make your character survivable. Okay? Translate that to 5th edition, you're making a character that can survive just about anything because it's ingrained in your being to make your character as survivable as possible. It's hard to kill a 5th edition character. But coming from 1st edition going to 5th edition, it's even more so because in 1st edition you have to try to make your character as tough as possible, as survivable as possible. So when I went from 1st to 5th edition, I'm looking for every advantage to keep my character alive. Consequently, I tend to make my characters a little OP in 5th edition. And for Nico and Chris, I apologize for that. It's how I learned to play, and it's not a slight on 5th edition. It's a holdover from 1st edition, and for that I apologize. But I did a video on Dungeon Master etiquette. Go check that out. I talk about Nico and Chris in there. They're great dungeon masters. But yeah, if you get a chance, read up on magic resistance, and if you've never played 1st edition Dungeons and Dragons, give it a try. It'll rock your world because it's hard to survive in that game. You have to try to make your character survivable. So, your wizard, by the way, in 1st edition starts out with 1 to 4 hit points. That's it. 4 plus whatever your constitution is, and your maximum constitution adjustment is 2. So a 1st level wizard has a maximum of 6 hit points, and that's with a high constitution. So yeah, it makes it challenging, to say the least. I'm doing these advice videos in the hopes that it helps newer dungeon masters to run a more consistent, manageable, imaginative, and fun game. It's just advice. One thing many dungeon masters overlook or fail to understand is saving throws. A savings throw is a way to avoid the effects, either in full or in part, of many different things. The 5 different savings throws are paralyzation, poison, or death magic, petrification or polymorph, rod, staff, wand, breath weapons, and spell. For the most part, just about everything a player character can encounter in the game is included in one of these. If by chance you do find something in the game, either an item, attack, or effect, that does not fit anywhere in these 5 savings throws, you can find the closest thing to it and use that one. In all fairness and honesty, I got to be honest with you, I do like the way 3.5 D&D does their savings throws. It's a broader concept and less constructive. It became better through simplicity. So I like that. That's okay. But at any rate, the savings throw system in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons works pretty well. One of the things many people overlook, players and dungeon masters alike, is that when a savings throw is failed, there may be further ramifications beyond just taking full damage. Breath weapons and fireballs are area of effect things. Breath weapons and area of effect spells like fireballs hit everything in an area. I can't read my own writing. They hit everything in an area. So when a player character fails his or her savings throw, I always stipulate that every item the PC is carrying or wearing has to make a savings throw as well. On page 80 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's a chart for just such an event. Familiarize yourself with that chart. A bit of common sense is in order here.
If a player character fails his save versus Fireball and is wearing a backpack, then I make the player character save for his backpack. If the backpack survives, then everything inside should be safe. The same goes for the belt pouches, chests, boxes, sacks, etc. A bag of holding that fails its save versus whatever has a 50-50 chance of sucking everything inside it into non-existence or dumping it out on the floor. A portable hull that is destroyed in a like manner takes everything inside it into non-existence. Some magic items, like artifacts, staves, wands, etc., explode when destroyed as a retributive strike. This is, of course, at your discretion. Flasks of oil will add 1d6 damage to the mix if they fail their save, versus fire damage. I have always played this way, and all of my players understand it. A funny story that goes along with this. I used to play with a guy named Mike. Mike was a bit of a weasel, but not in a bad way. He was a weasel in a good way. He always tried to think outside the box and get away with as much as he could. But he never went against the party, and he was never mean-spirited about it. He just liked to make use of every conceivable loophole. And he was very fun to have in the games. It's not like he was an asshole or anything. He just wanted every advantage. He wanted to do different things every single game, and a lot of that's good. In one game session, his gnome character fancied himself an inventor. So what he did is he rigged up a large bladder on a backpack rig, fixed up a hose, rigged an ignition system, and voila, one medieval flamethrower. Everyone enjoyed his invention as it made clearing rooms in the dungeon so much easier. Then, of course, they ran into the wizard. Mike was on point, and the group was in a short, narrow hallway. Mike failed his savings throw versus the fireball, and so did his backpack, the bladder. He had just filled it up, so it contained the full 50 flasks equivalent of oil, which of course sprayed down the hall all over the rest of the player characters. The fireball was a 10 hit die spell, and the 50 flasks worth of oil added another 50 dice. So 60 d6 damage killed most of the party outright. The rest burned to death trying to exit the hallway. Mike was not popular after that. I suggest you read up on the section in the Dungeon Master's Guide on savings throws, pages 79 through 81. Be familiar with the savings throw charts for both player characters and their gear. Remember, you don't have to be able to quote rules verbatim, chapter and verse. You just have to be familiar with them and know where to look them up. This particular video is on what is affectionately called TPK, and affectionately might not be the right word. It's infamously called TPKs, Total Party Kills. One of the most devastating things that can happen to any group of players is the dreaded total party kill. He dies, she dies, everybody dies. And that's from a movie called Heavy Metal. If you've not seen it, it's animated, it's wonderful. A TPK can be caused by any number of things, and you're going to run into this eventually. It's never good to kill off any player character. Killing off a number of player characters is never good. Sometimes it's necessary. Killing off the entire party. And sometimes it's not even your fault. I've had player characters kill off each other by accident with fumbles and things. Sometimes it's not your fault. Okay? I got a list of stuff here. Some of them, none of these are the Dungeon Master's fault. But they all resulted in total party kills. Here we go. I had a player character wizard, and I talked about this in the I want to say it's the Staff of the Magi or Staff of Power. It might have been the Staff of Power video. He used a retributive strike in a tavern where the entire party was present, and he did it because a half orc had happened to be in the tavern at the time, threatened him. It was a half orc. That was it. It was a 0 level NPC, and a 1 hit die critter, so to speak. And posed no threat to anyone. He could have beat on that wizard 8 or 10 times and not killed him. But the wizard, retributive strike! Killed everybody in the tavern, including the players. Total party kill. No idea why he did it, but it wasn't my fault. Check out my video when the entire party is stupid. I was a player character in that one. Yeah, I died. Everybody died. When the entire party is stupid, and we were stupid. Tactical misjudgments. There's only 30 of them, guys. We can take them. Or the infamous, it's only a dragon. That one gets me. That one gets me. It's only a dragon, you know. I've had parties wiped out like that. And it's not your fault. If there's an army over there and these 6 player characters decide to go over there and attack that army, let the chips fall where they may. They deserve to die. I'm sorry. They earned it. They worked hard for it. They earned it. Not knowing when to keep your mouth shut. I had a player character like this. Actually, I've had a number of player characters like this. Listen here. I don't care if you are a king. I think you're stupid, and I think blah 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 blah. Yeah, that's a quick way to get killed. And if the party defends him, they're all going to die too. I've had a number of players kill entire parties like that because the king won't put up with that shit. I'm sorry, he's not going to do it. I had one player character who was so vital to the kingdom. He was running a wizard. He was so vital to the kingdom with all the stuff he was doing. He walked in and said, "Hey, king, how you doing?" And got away with it. So it's not always, but you know, you gotta make a judgment call there. This is one of the most infamous ones: splitting the party. Never, 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 never split the party. You get these guys who go, well, I think half of us should go that way and half of it just... Okay? Don't do it. Stay together. If your party decides to split up and there's warning signs and they ignore them, or you say, well, maybe y'all should stick together, and they ignore you, that's on them. Okay? But as a general rule in Dungeons & Dragons, this is for everybody. Players and dungeon masters alike. Never, never, never split the party. Okay. Argumentative players. This will happen in every game. I don't care what you say, Mr. DM, I'm going to go kill that giant. Or that dragon. Or that titan. Or whatever the hell, you know. It happens. And, of course, the party wanting the cohesiveness. Yeah, if he thinks he can do it, maybe we should trust him. And they go. Or, we have to back up our guy. And they all die. Had a party attacked a family of storm giants one time. And it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't even necessary. But they did. And the 3 adult storm giants in the group obliterated the entire party. If you don't understand the power of a storm giant, go read them up. They're in the monster manual. Go read up on them. Okay. Apathetic players. Well, I don't care. Whatever. You know, those guys. You get them in every group. Or, you know, you're going around. Okay, what are you doing? Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? And every time when you get to them, huh? What? What's going on? You know, those guys. Those guys will kill a party. Believe it or not, they will. My favorite one. Should we go to the question the librarian, or should we go try to find the Thieves Guild? I don't care. Whatever you want to do. Okay, let's go find the Thieves Guild, and then the entire party gets killed by thieves. I've had that happen. Misunderstanding or underestimating other people's motives. This actually happened in a campaign with a group of I want to say 8th level characters roughly. The wizard actually came out and said, I doubt that barbarian village will mind if we teleport in.
if you read up on the description of barbarians, and there was a barbarian in the group, that was the sad part. If you read up on the description of barbarians, they don't like magic users. They don't like magic. I equate it to superstition. Oh, it's an evil. It's a witch. It's evil. Burn it. Kind of thing. They do not like wizards, and that I think part of it comes from the old Conan comic books, the Conan stories. Robert E. Howard. I think that's. If I mess that up, please tell me. I forget, but I believe it's Robert E. Howard. L. Sprague de Camp. Those guys. Barbarians don't like wizards. Period. Barbarians hate magic, according to the books. Teleporting into a barbarian village is asking to be killed. And they got killed. I don't care. I want to say there was 4 9th level characters, 8th or 9th level characters, and 150 barbarians. 1st level barbarians. You give me 150 rolls, yeah, I'm rolling some crits. Okay, they all died. They didn't last the first round. And my absolute favorite way of a justified total party kill is when a majority of the players are ghosting. And I've talked about this in some other videos. I have a house rule that if the players, you have a group of players, anybody who can't make it to the game is considered ghosting. One would hope that there's a reason you can't make it to the game, but And in ghosting essentially means the player character is with the group and he's traveling with them. That way they don't get left behind. They can't do anything to help or hinder the group. They don't get any experience because they're not actually being played. And they're immune from death or damage unless the entire party dies. And then they die as well. I make that understood at the beginning of every game, every campaign. Every campaign that I run. This is how I do it because I don't want to have to backtrack with player characters. Oh, they left you over here in this cave, blah, 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 It makes everything easier. But players tend to get pissed when they call up and say, okay, I can make it to the game this week. It doesn't matter, your character died. What? Why did you die? The whole party died. Blah, 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 I wasn't there. Yeah, but you were ghosting. A party of 8 and 3 people showed. Now, I planned the game for a party of 8. 3 people showed up. The 3 people decided to continue on the adventure, and I gave them every option. I said, hey, maybe you guys should do something else this time, not continue on this particular path, because there's shit over there that was designed for 8. I thought there was going to be 8 people here, so I planned the bad guys accordingly, and, maybe you should take a side quest, go to this village, relax for a little bit, we'll do something over there, that kind of thing for this session. No, they wanted to continue. They were dead set on getting this mission. We can do it! We can do it! We're badass! We can do it! And they all died. The 5 ghosting player characters also died. This is not the dungeon master's fault. This is the player's fault. You can say, well, the ghosting player should have been there. You can say the 3 that did show should have had better common sense. You can say whatever. You gave them the option to get out. They didn't. That's on them. These are only some of the reasons that an entire party can get wiped out. There are many, many more. I do not enjoy the moniker of Killer Dungeon Master. I try not to overmatch the players in my game. I try to create a challenge without overpowering them. There used to be a tournaments where they would have killer dungeons. Dungeons nobody is supposed to survive. And if you could survive those, I know one guy, his name's Gerald Gingrey. He could survive killer dungeons because he had that mindset. He was a vicious. Gerald is the greatest guy in the world. He would bend over backwards to help you. He would give you the shirt off his back. You put him in a role-playing game, that's a vicious bastard. He will do whatever it takes to survive. He will chew through dead corpses to survive if he has to. Okay? Gerald is one of my best friends. He's freaking awesome.
At any rate, the idea is to give the players a challenge to overcome, but not to overwhelm them with numbers or enemies they cannot defeat. Now, there's a difference between you're being attacked by 1,000 armed individuals. 1,000 armed individuals is a hell of a thing that it's going to wipe out just about any party. If it's, with even a modicum of luck, 1,000 rolls. How many crits are you going to make? Do the math. 1 in 20. Here's the thing: if you see an army of 10,000 over there and they're going that way, and your guys are hiding over here in the woods, if the party decides to attack that's not your fault. Okay, that's window dressing that the party decided to engage. But sometimes you want to create a puzzle or a situation they have to figure out, a trap they have to get past. The whole point is to make sure that your players are having fun. Total party kills, are no fun for anyone, but sometimes they are justified. If you mention to your players that they're down to 4 to 5 hit points each, and the 8 ancient huge red dragons haven't been touched, and the party intentionally chooses to press the attack, I'm sorry, that's a TPK, and it's not your fault. They had the opportunity to run away. They chose to attack. So, keep in mind, total party kills aren't good, but generally they're not the Dungeon Master's fault. Sometimes they are. You put them up against these 8 dragons and the players have no chance to get away. Yeah, then, but sometimes the players are just asking for it. Just saying. Over the years, the game designers added books and other addendums to the game. Most of it is okay. Some of it is really bad. But some of it is exceptionally great. Enter the Unearthed Arcana. This book, in my opinion, completed the player's handbook. It added classes and races and spells that were awesome. Kind of rearranged where the classes belonged, but it added things like the Barbarian and it put the Paladin under the Cavalier as a separate class. Added the Thief Acrobat. It was really, really cool. In my opinion, one of the best things the book added was the spell Item. Item is on page 55, and you really need to read that spell thoroughly. It has so many uses. It's a 3rd level spell, so magic users get it at 5th level. That means the minimum area of effect is 10 cubic feet. That's 10 foot by 10 foot by 10 foot. That's an automobile, people. You could make an automobile. You can cast it on something like the size of your car and stick it in your pocket. The minimum duration, of course, because it's you get it at 5th level, is 5 hours. 6 turns being per level, or 1 hour per level. That's the way the time works in the game. If it's non-living material, you multiply that by 4. So the minimum duration is 5 hours. But if you use this item on a wagon, for example, that there's nothing living in there, the duration is then 4 times as long. So that's 20 hours. You can cast item on a wagon load of stuff, put it in your pocket, walk for 19 hours and pull it out, and there you go. You see what I'm saying? Think of what you can do with that. It's crazy. An itemized fire tossed amongst hay or barrels of oil turns into a firebomb. Gently placing said fire half under one of the barrels in cloth form. Because you can either make it a statue or a piece of cloth, right? Well, if you lift one of the barrels and slide it half under, it becomes a time bomb. An itemized boulder into a small statue rolled down a hill suddenly becomes a giant rolling bowling ball a la Indiana Jones. Imagine the squad of enemy soldiers chasing you up the hill when the boulder suddenly comes thundering down the hill at them. There's so many uses for this thing. I was running a magic user years ago, and we had a group of 5 people, and there was a wildfire that had trapped us out the edge of a cliff, and we had no way to get down. I I could fly, but my character couldn't lift everyone. We'd had a serious fight, and I was short of spells. The only spell I had that was usable was item. I convinced them all to do a kind of a group hug. I itemized them and then tossed the little statue off the cliff. When they hit the bottom, they changed back into the group. I saved them. Item has so many uses. Just whatever you do, do not overlook this spell. Give you an example of how effective this can be. I knew one devious so-and-so who delivered legions of soldiers by air into key strategic positions using, get this, because there was a druid in the group, using flocks of birds. Yeah, birds were carrying little pieces of cloth, and they would go over and they would drop them, and the cloth would come down, and when it hit the ground, boom, you got a squad of soldiers, right? Well, he did this 20 or 30 times, and you had a sizable force back there. You know, I mean, the uses of this spell are beyond description. The only limiting factor to this, it's essentially stasis, like out of Star Trek. But the only real limitation is the duration, and the area of effect and duration. Other than that, there's very little you can't do with this spell. It's crazy. Using it offensively is risky because say you want to itemize the bad guy. That's cool. The problem is he gets a savings throw. And he may get, as I recall, he gets a bonus. But my contention is, you don't need to. You can itemize other stuff and kill him with it. It's crazy. If you get the chance, find the Unearthed Arcana and read up on the item, on the spell item. It has so many uses, it's beyond description. I can't possibly list all the uses here. If you have a magic user and you get to you get to 5th level and you're able to get 3rd level spells, find item and get it. You will thank me later.